Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. I have already been made fun of today because I am wearing denim on denim. And so, would you call me the Marlboro Man?
Well, I wore denim on denim, though, a couple Sundays ago.
I think it's coming back.
I was actually upset. Do you know that was the Sunday? I wore that. I feel like that was my cool outfit.
Yeah.
We didn't have a photographer that day.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I picked up a speaking engagement here in like 2 weeks, and they were asking, like, whenever you get booked for speaking stuff, you probably had this when you've been booked for worship before. They want a headshot or they want something for promo. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to the cool outfit and try to find it.
Yeah.
And it's just gone. I'm like, oh, man. So I start looking at all the other pictures. I'm like, oh, my gosh, these are, like, I look awful in all these pictures. So I wasn't sure what I was going to use because I wanted a picture of me in the cool outfit.
Yeah.
Denim on denim.
That's funny.
That's you did know that that's what Mario's pants were made out of as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
From Super Mario,
Yeah.
like Super Mario. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
wearing overalls.
Yeah, but, that's his favorite type of pants. Denim, denim, denim.
Oh, gosh.
Boom! That's how we start
Well,
the podcast right there.
Thank you for joining us for another episode. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up before we
See,
even
I've
get
already
started.
said so much. That was a full podcast in one joke.
That would be funny, though, if that was the whole episode. And then we're just like, okay, let's start this again.
See, like how you got the pastor's potluck and Anna's got Nana's casserole. I mean, we
Yeah.
can do like a dad joke
Yeah,
as well. 'Cause
that's what you should do.
It's my specialty.
Yeah.
Actually, Landon loves dad jokes too. We got him a dad joke book for Christmas, and he thinks they're just the funniest thing
Oh, that's great.
ever, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Every time you're on, just bring a dad joke.
I can do that.
Well, you got to save it, though.
I could literally do
We
a whole
can't-
episode on dad jokes as well.
I don't.
Oh, maybe Father's Day.
Yeah,
We'll see.
maybe.
Speaking of dad jokes, look at them shoes.
These are my cutting grass 101s right here.
Yeah, yeah.
This is what you rock whenever you cut
You got to
grass.
have 3 kids and an HOA to wear those.
I need some jean shorts
Yeah, made
with like a
that you
white
made yourself.
with like a white like NASCAR shirt tucked
Yeah.
in with no belt and a fanny pack.
Oh man,
some
y'all
gold-
wouldn't believe we're about to talk about the Bible today.
Some gold rim glasses to go with it.
Boom.
Yeah, we're going to continue our discussion. Something that we started last year, and then obviously with holidays and everything else that had happened here with our leak and stuff like that. But we're going to get back on track as we're going to open up the Bible, talk about some characters. This one's probably going to be like a 12-parter.
Yeah, well, he covers a lot of ground.
Yes,
Yeah, he
literally.
does. Yeah, and yeah.
Dad joke.
Another dad joke, man. You guys are getting more than what you paid for this one.
Yeah, so we're going to dive back into the Word and study the characters there. I shouldn't say characters, to study the people that are there in the Word and break it down and what can we take from their stories and what God has talked to them about or maybe what God has led them through or provided for them. And so this episode we're going to talk about Moses. I wish Moses had a last name. I was studying this last night. I was like, how come people in the Bible just don't have last names? They do, but it was like Moses, son of whatever. Like you were always
Yeah,
known
you were
like
always just known by your lineage, like who
Yeah.
your dad was, and they were able to track it through
yeah.
like that. Well, and honestly, like people, I don't know when last names came about. Like I'm sure that we could find that out. That's one of those reasons. Like that was it this series or maybe it was the last. I think it was the Christmas series when I preached about how Christ isn't Jesus' last name.
Yeah.
Like, there's actually like people that think that. And actually, Anna and I were just talking about an episode of The Office
Uh-huh.
where Michael Scott like says he's dressed up like Jesus, and he's telling his boss, he's like, "Do you know who I'm dressed up like right now?" He's like, "I'm not gonna guess." He said, "Well, I'll tell you." He said, "My last name's Christ," and I'm like, "Wow!" Like when I say that when I'm preaching, I think people go like, "Duh, that's not his last name." But I actually do think that there's some confusion around that.
Well,
This whole like last name thing,
yeah.
that would be interesting. I've never researched it at what point in human history it became important to have a surname.
Well, it was so like my last name translates to something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's a German last name, and so
Me too.
you were known by your occupation, and so like my name's Jared Bodker. It translates to Jared like
You made Reeboks.
no, no. So it translates to either like a basket maker or fish, like a fishmonger or something. So that's what my last name translates to, like Jared the basket maker or Jared the fishmonger. But I prefer to go by Bodker.
You should have never told us this, Jared.
Look, I always haven't given y'all bullets to be firing back at me, but no, you know,
Give us
I'm a
couple
team
hours
player.
to go check southridge.org.
Yeah.
Jared the basket maker.
Yeah, that would have been awesome if it had something to do with music, but it's something way less important.
Yeah. All right,
So
Moses. Yeah, where are we going?
So
Right from the beginning?
Right at the beginning, I want to kind of talk because I think it's important that we understand how we normally just get the bits and pieces of people's story.
Yeah.
We don't get to hear like where they come from or anything like that, but this rare instance in the Word, we get to know about whenever Moses was born and how God had his hands on Moses' life essentially throughout his whole life. And so I just kind of wanted to talk there for a little bit because we know that he was born of Levite parents. So, and so we know that we know early on, like a little bit of his lineage, but then we also hear the story about how Pharaoh was seeing that the Israelite numbers were just like starting to just like skyrocket.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about like why, like how Pharaoh, like how it sets it up later on in his life for like where he was and why he was doing the things that he was doing. So,
yeah. So Moses has an interesting story because of, and it reminds you a lot of the birth narratives of Jesus that we find out about.
yeah.
And then you see like the providence of God behind it. Because you go like, there's horrible stuff happening, but God is going to use the horrible stuff. Not that he causes it, but he uses it. And that's, I was watching something on social media from Neil Tyson DeGrasse or whatnot. That dude's brilliant. But like he also has like a bone to pick with religion.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how like all these world disasters and things, like he's like, just look at all the amount of people that die. He goes, that's all the proof you need that God doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, I mean, that like for such a brilliant guy, that's such a shallow apologetic for his point. It's like, no, actually, over and over and over, what people of true faith will tell you is that God uses the terrible things that already happen for his purposes. He's not necessarily causing them, but he's not wasting them either. That's what happens with Moses' life. Israel is in slavery now in Egypt, and their numbers are growing like crazy. And part of that goes back to that blessing that is to be upon Israel.
Yeah.
Descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and sand in the shore and whatnot. And so they're having lots of children. The nation is growing even in captivity, which just speaks to the power of God. And that makes Pharaoh nervous, so he begins to enslave them because he thought, wow, they're going to take over.
Yeah.
And then he thought, well, how can I slow this down even further? He commands them to start killing.
All the male children up to a certain age, and he told them, he was like, just start chunking them in the river and drowning them. And it's brutal, but I mean that's one way to prevent things from happening.
That's what people don't understand
escalating.
about like ancient kings and pharaohs and Caesars and these different roles, they were just like determined
Yeah.
to mitigate and to do away with any threat to their power whatsoever.
Yeah.
And like to kill a bunch of babies from what he would see as a rival nation, he doesn't blink about it. He doesn't think twice about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But how Moses comes about is there are some of these Hebrew midwives that their faith in God is too strong for them to bow down and cower down to this command. And so in this instance, with Moses, they didn't do what Pharaoh said to do. And Moses' mother, being very wise, decides to take him and put him in a basket.
Probably made by a member of my family.
Yeah. Probably from a basket from the last name Bodker. Covers it with pitch, puts it into the Nile River.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interesting enough, that the Hebrew word there for basket, same word as ark from the story of Noah.
Really?
Yeah. The same way that the ark of Noah was covered with something on the outside, so was the basket
Yeah.
that Moses is born in, or not born in, but saved through.
Yeah.
It's just, you're getting the same picture.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? Noah goes into the ark, he comes out, and that's what kind of continues the story on. And so Moses goes into this basket, and he's going to ultimately be saved by being raised up out of the basket, which is where his name Moses comes from. Is I think it's like being raised out of, or something like that. But that basket, I guess, floats down the river. Lo and behold, this is the providence of God, as well as just kind of the way things were. Pharaoh's daughter finds the basket. There's a Hebrew baby in it.
Mm-hmm.
She wants the baby.
Yep.
And the sister, I think, was following along down the river.
Yeah.
As well. And so she's told, hey, go find someone to nurse this baby. And so actually Moses' mother actually gets to be back into the picture because of that wild story. And it's
crazy setting it up. Like how you got to
see
think
God's
this
protection there. Like that was that thing in the Neil Tyson Degrassi video. He was talking about how like he's like all these like people of faith talk about how God protects them. He's like, there's no evidence for that whatsoever. Like, look at a tsunami, like wipes out 50,000 people the same day that an earthquake wipes out 30,000 people. He's like, there's no evidence God protects his people. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's so shallow because like we have no idea how much God does protect.
Yeah.
And then we do have these instances in his word that reveals to us how in the past he has been faithful to protect. Not everyone, but in certain instances, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so because of the calling that God has for Moses' life, he does see fit to step in and intervene in this very special way. It's not a promise that he's going to step in and not let anything bad ever happen to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But in this situation, God intervenes. And that's a really and that's why so I think somebody that's more of a skeptical perspective would look at it and go like, well, gosh, he only intervenes when he wants to. Like, what's the point in having faith if there's no guarantee? And then, like, from my perspective, I would go like, well, that's just incredible that God would step in right there when nobody and nothing can force him to.
Yeah.
Like, that's nothing but grace. Like, yeah, you see the two perspectives are drastically, like, one of them you're coming at it goes like, that looks like a malevolent God. And to me, I look at it and I go like, that looks like a loving God because even if he only did it once, it would look loving because look at us. What have we ever done to deserve God's protection? And I mean, me and you have shared stories of God's protection in our life. Like I had the cops twice after car wrecks before I got saved tell my parents I should have died.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, and at that point in my life, it didn't look like God had a plan for me, right? I was out just wilding out, doing stupid stuff all the time.
Yep.
Now looking back, I can go, okay, now I understand why God protected me from that instance and this instance and why God didn't let things get as bad as they possibly could have gotten, in each of those. And I know you've got similar stories as well.
I think it was a good wake-up call for me because I knew that eventually that if I kept on going down the path that I was going, that God was just going to be like, well, there's nothing that I can do. And, like, it's kind of like taking your hands off of someone that has like a reprobate mind to where it's just like there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do that's going to be able to change his mind or the way of his thinking, because he's not feeling guilty about this. He's not wanting to do anything else except for to self-destruct. And so I knew that if I kept on pushing my luck, I was going to end up that way. And I didn't want to, nobody wants to die. Whenever you have a chance to sit back and think about it, you want to live a long, full, healthy life.
Yeah.
And God protected me from a lot. But even if you don't have the same story as you and I, you could still look at God's protection. Say if you have a popped tire, right, and you're on the side of the road,
Yeah.
and there's not some idiot on his phone trying to post
Yeah,
a
you're
live
sitting
or
there
a TikTok.
frustrated about the flat tire
Yeah,
or whatever it is. You have no idea what that may have saved you from.
yep, that, or just getting out and changing your tire.
Yeah.
Everybody has been focused, and they were able to see you while you were doing your thing, and
Yeah.
like it's just so little. I mean, you go to work every single day. You come home, your house didn't fall on you. Like if there's a lot to, like whenever you think about it and take a step back, there's a lot to say. Go, God has protected me and provided for me, and
Yeah.
and
Because that's
given
where the
so
story
much.
goes. It wasn't just that God protected Moses, but then he turns around and provides for him above and beyond what anyone would imagine. Like, he gets to spend time with his mother and his sister through this course of events that they were brought back in by Pharaoh's daughter. But then after that time period is over, he's literally being raised in Pharaoh's home.
Well, look at it this way too. It's because of somebody else's obedience that Moses was
Yeah.
lifted up.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
that's a sermon in itself, right there.
100%. And so he is getting the best education.
Yeah,
He's in a wealthy family instead of a poor Jewish enslaved family.
yeah,
He's learning military tactics because he's been raised in Pharaoh's home. He's probably learning languages.
yeah.
Like, all of this is like stuff that no one else had. He been raised just a normal Hebrew boy, he wouldn't have had any of that.
No.
That God turns around and is able to use later on in life. All of this military strategy, all of this experience that he has for all these other things that God is going to call him to.
Yeah.
He gets from what doesn't look like a good situation where, oh, I'm supposed to die. Okay, I guess I'll have to settle for living with this lady that's not my mother. None of it ever looks good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that if Moses had his way, he wouldn't have been like, God, could we just do this a different way? I'd rather be with my mom. But sometimes we face stuff in life that's out of our control.
Yeah.
And, we do have a tendency to fuss and fight about those things. But we have no idea what impact, ultimately, how God could end up using that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I would never choose to go through this, but since I had to go through it, then it's going to be for my good and the glory of God and the good of others as well, if I will let God do that.
Yeah.
That's the story of Moses, is like over and over and over. Even though Moses had failures like everyone else, he just continued to let God use him in his imperfections and all of that. And it all started with this story of like this divine protection and then preparation for where God was taking him. And I mean, it happened early on in life, right? I mean, like, I can only imagine if I were ever able to gather up enough brain cells to think about early on in life stuff that was going on that is making a difference right now. I'm certain that there is stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
No doubt about it. Like just through God's providence, I was in certain school classes probably that educated me in a way that would have been superior to a different class.
Yeah.
Or I went to this school or whatever it was. Like, there was probably these little things that God was doing all along the way that has prepared me for where I'm at right now that I can't even put a finger on. And that's what happened with Moses. Like, he got the best of everything
Yeah.
to prepare him ultimately to be the one to bring that nation to he literally is going to plunder that nation after that nation is the one that God used their resources to educate him,
Yeah.
train him, and raise him up. He's going to then use all of that back against them, and it's crazy.
Yeah. The next part of the story, it's kind of it seems like there's like this awakening, so to speak, with Moses because obviously he's seeing the victimization and the brutalization of these Israelites, of one of whom he is, and there's probably no doubt in his mind that he is an Israelite. He
Oh, yeah.
probably knows by now because he's probably got the same skin, the same the same style of hair, or the same like hair consistency as opposed to the Egyptians. Because even though that this distance between where the Israelites were from in Egypt, it looks close on a map. It's not.
Oh,
It's quite a ways away.
yeah. Well, we don't get any sense from the scriptures that he didn't always know that he was a Hebrew.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, later on in life, I think the next thing that the scriptures go to is he sees two Israelites fighting,
Yeah.
and he tries to break it up. The first thing he sees the Egyptian
Yes.
beating an Israelite, and he gets upset and actually kills the Egyptian because he still identifies with his people. He buries them,
Yeah.
buries that
The Egyptian guy.
the Egyptian guy in the sand or whatnot, but someone saw.
Yeah, because he was like, "Hey, why are you two fighting between each other? Like, we're brothers." And he's like, and then the other guy looks at him. He goes, "What are you talking about, bro? You just killed somebody."
Yeah. Yeah, so he sees the next day or whenever, he sees those two Israelites. He's like, what, are you going to kill us like you killed that guy? And all of a sudden, Moses is like, oh, my goodness, somebody knows.
Yeah.
And so he has to take off, this is like again, just the providence of God. What looks like a horrible situation. And no doubt about it, Moses made a poor decision in,
Yeah.
murdering an Egyptian
Yeah.
that was overseeing the forced labor and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That it ended up costing him quite a bit in that moment.
Yeah.
But yet, God was still able to use it and redeem it for his story. So he has to flee to a place called Midian,
Yeah.
where he ends up being a farmer. Just imagine that life change. Like, you grew up in the palace, you had nothing but servants and the finest of everything.
Yeah.
And now, like, you're away from family, you're away from friends, you're away from the palace, you're away from all the nice food and drink and clothes, and now you're a farmer.
Yeah.
Nothing against farmers, but I imagine if that was your upbringing, that would be a tough transition.
For
It
sure.
was all because of that one decision that you made. And Moses' story at many different times becomes a story of how important our decisions are.
Yeah.
Like, how important decisions are and how they end up shaping our life.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I do a season out in Midian, which is like,
He spent 40 years out there. He ended up meeting his wife and having two
Yeah.
sons. And then he also later connects with his brother while he's out there, but still it doesn't mention any kind of timeline. I can imagine that he was out there quite a while trying to get his bearings, but still
Yeah.
having to do this hard physical labor. And it's just a crazy story. Like you said, going from palace and
yeah.
now you're just breaking your back every single day.
Yeah, it's a turn of events, but it's those events that get him right where God needs to get him.
Yeah.
So the way he can appear to him
Yeah.
and tell him, "Hey, I'm not done with you." Like, and that's another part of the beauty of Moses' story was Moses was a murderer.
Yeah.
He was a murderer, and he fled. He didn't take responsibility for what he did, and God was still not finished with him. And that's beautiful because there's a lot of people that they do something wrong and they think that God is finished with them on the
Yeah.
spot. I'm done with you. Don't want nothing to do with you. You messed up too much. And it's like, we don't ever see that happen in the scriptures ever. We never see God treat someone like that. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you just messed up too much. You're too far beyond being saved or forgiven or whatever. He's like, no, Moses, you're a murderer. You're a liar. You covered it up.
Yeah.
You didn't do the right thing. And yet, I'm still not finished with you. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, we get to this, like, bizarre place in the story. And because we teach this to kids, it doesn't seem as bizarre to those of us that grew up in church.
Yeah.
Like, it seems totally normal that God appears to Moses at this point in a bush that's on fire,
But
but
not
it's
being
not being consumed. And like, for all of us good little church kids, like that colored 1,000 pictures of this bush. For some reason, I mean, it took me till I was an adult to go like,
This sounds like
why did I not think that this was odd?
this sounds like a really bad trip.
Yeah. Why did I not think like, well, God, why did you do that? There was other times in the scriptures that you just like,
An
talk
angel
to
appeared.
someone. Yeah, you sent an angel. You just talk to him like a normal person. What are you doing with this? And I was preaching this one time, and I'll never forget, like, trying to figure out, like, what is the significance of the bush that's on fire? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, why did we do that? Why was that your path, God? It was like, I don't know. If you murdered someone and took off and thought God was done with you, and I think that this is where a lot of people are that have major failures in their life, you need something extraordinary to get your attention.
Yeah.
And I think that's why God didn't just like, hey, Moses, I want you to go and do this. It was like there was something extraordinary that took place. Like right at the beginning of it, he even tells Moses, he goes, Moses, take your sandals off.
Yeah.
For the place where you're standing is holy ground, which is like, oh, my goodness. Like this is going to be a big deal. And he sees this bush, and it's on fire, but yet the leaves aren't like being consumed. It's still all there. And I think it was because the condition that Moses was in, it was going to take something extraordinary to get his attention. Like that like I love Moses' story because I see myself in it so much. Like
Yeah.
it took some extraordinary situations to get me where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And by no means am I where I wish that I was, but to get me where I am right now,
Yeah.
it took some extraordinary, like, low times, some heartache, some tears, some failure, some embarrassment, some, I cannot remember who said it, but, like, when it comes to God, you got two options. You can humble yourself, or he'll humiliate you until you become humble.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of humiliation in my story, and all of that just because I have always been the type of person that has to take the hard route wherever
me
I'm
too.
going. And I see, I know people like that,
Yeah.
and it's so frustrating because I'm like, and that was one of my number one things when I came into ministry. I said, look, if I could just get one person to listen to me, that would go, don't go that path. You may end up in the same place. I ended up right where God wants me to be.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of scars on the path, and there would have probably been a little bit easier path to where I'm at had I listened whenever I was a kid, because I was raised in a Christian home. I was in the presence of the Lord. I was in church. I had people around me that loved the Lord and all of this, that my path could have been a lot smoother
Yeah.
had I just listened, and that's always been my prayer. And so I think Moses needed the burning bush.
Yeah.
God didn't need the burning bush. I think Moses needed it.
Yeah.
I think he needed that moment of like, oh my gosh, like he's not done with me.
Yeah.
I thought when I did this that he was done, but he's not finished with me yet.
Yeah.
He has not thrown in the towel on me, so I don't want to throw in the towel on him, even though he kind of tried to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard it put that way. The burning bush wasn't for Moses, but as you were talking, it's just like so many of us have gone through life and have made huge mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe failed business ideas, and you feel shame because of that, or and you're a recovering addict or alcoholic, or maybe you have a failed marriage or just whatever, but just knowing that even though you probably won't have your own burning bush moment, that the same God that talked to Moses that way is the same God that's talking to you right now, that's saying, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. I'm not done.
Yeah. And no one else gets a burning bush, but everyone has some sort of burning bush in their life. I
Correct.
think when that's the case, like for me, I can remember some really powerful times in my life that I would say that was kind of like a burning bush moment.
Yeah.
Like the week before I got saved, I wake up from like a drunken stupor, like did a bunch of stupid stuff the night before, almost ruined every relationship in my life. By this point, my family was frustrated and embarrassed because I was out in the town just acting a fool all the time.
Yeah.
And just kind of reckless in all these different ways. And I'll never forget the morning I woke up that all of this kind of started my path towards the Lord. It felt like there was an elephant sitting on my chest. and I could not figure out what it was. But there was this heaviness that I had never felt before that felt like it was going to crush me.
Yeah.
And it felt like one of those moments that was like, this is not normal. Because I was pretty accustomed to waking up and going like, whew, that was a wild one last night. You know,
Yeah.
I don't even want to look at my phone to see how many bridges I've burned. That was like a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
So to wake up with this like strange sense of guilt and a weight and a heaviness on me was something new.
Yeah.
So it was one of those moments where I could tell now looking back that God's going, like, I haven't forgotten the kid that grew up in church. I haven't forgotten that kid that knows all that stuff about the Bible from the times that you did Bible quizzing and
Yeah.
that you went to this camp. I haven't forgotten that kid. It was like the first time that happened.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've had a bunch of those other moments. Like, I'll never forget when I finally felt like this crazy confirmation to come into ministry. Like, I had worked in kids ministry here, like, as a volunteer. I knew that wasn't what God wanted. I can't sing or play an instrument, so I knew I wasn't going to be in worship ministry. I was barely saved, so I knew I wasn't going to be, like, a lead pastor, like, after being saved for 18 months. I think that would be a horrible idea. So I was like, well, what in the world am I going to do? And so I started thinking, I was like, oh, it's probably youth ministry then. Maybe that's where I was meant to be. And I walk into the youth pastor's office here at Southridge, and I tell him, I'm like, hey, I think I'm supposed to be working with you. Like, because I was like, I'm not going to serve in all these other areas anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is the place. So I go in and I say, hey, I think I'm supposed to serve with you or work with you. He goes, and I'll never forget this like, you know, burning bush moment of confirmation for me that I was on the right track. When that guy looks at me, he's one of my best friends, and looks at me and goes, I know, I've been waiting on you. It was like he already knew before I had the courage to say it. He already knew, like, the Lord had already spoke to him. And that was one of those moments that it was like, okay, this isn't just like a good idea in my mind. Like, sometimes, like, it's hard to tell whether, like, we've come up with a good idea or whether God is actually leading us to something.
I know.
Because, like, I was doing that prayer this morning. I was like, okay, God, please, in this situation, will you tell me that it's you and not me? Because I know, I mean, it's easy for us to come up with a clever idea and blame it on God.
Well,
But,
yeah.
like, I want to make sure that it's God.
Yeah.
And so I've had that moment. So, like, when you walk in someone's office and you go, I think I'm supposed to be serving in your ministry. Like,
Yeah.
I think. I'm not 100% certain. I think. And then he looks at you and he goes, no, I know. I've been waiting on you.
It's so funny, like how like your story is like exactly the opposite of mine because
Oh, yeah.
you needed that confirmation right then. But I think God was trying to teach me something else because I knew that this is what God was telling me to do. And I'm walking in the office. I'm like, dude, I know this is what God is asking me to do. And somebody looking at me going, there's not a spot for you. And I remember walking away going, well, that didn't go good, did it?
Yeah.
I think God was trying to teach me maybe a little bit of determination or something. But
Yeah.
that's
still mind-blowing to me every time you tell that story. I'm like, because I've only ever been around a really healthy church culture like Southridge,
yeah.
like some of that unhealthiness that I hear about from other people, I don't even understand it.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea that, oh, I'm sorry, we got enough people. I'm like,
No,
What?
we find stuff for people
yeah,
to
I
do.
will, no joke, I will make up a position for somebody.
Yeah.
If they want to serve the Lord,
Yeah.
and I don't mean make up like give them busy work or like
No,
some like.
Something that's
No,
gonna,
I'll find something
Yeah.
that you can do that will give you fulfillment because it's that important. So that still blows my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think we've all had those like burning bush moments where we go like, okay, God, like you got my attention, because it had to be something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Like and I also think this is probably another reason why I identify with Moses. People's temperaments play a lot into this.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that are wired differently than me and you that did not have to take the hard route to where they were at.
Yeah.
And they didn't really need a burning bush. They needed just like a little tap on the back, like, hey, this
That's
is the
what
right
I was gonna ask you. I was
Yeah.
like, because sometimes, like, you know, we hear of like these drastic, like major life
Yeah.
story happenings or whatever, but sometimes it's just like somebody that shows up to church and then that person just saying, "Hey, I've never met you before, but I just want to let you know it is just so good to see you. That could just be just the little tiny,
Yeah.
like
Just
the
the
little
little
tiny
tiny, like-
ember, just to kind of get that fire started
Yeah.
for them, and it's just a constant little bitty things along the way
Yeah.
that just kind of nudges them into that calling.
Yeah, and this is that thing, like some people that like maybe they came to faith early on in life,
Mhm.
they'll always be like, "Oh, I don't really have much of a testimony." It's like, no, listen, it doesn't matter how like squeaky clean your life looked like
Yeah,
up front. Like everyone that's ever been saved has a testimony, because
yeah,
you may not think that your life was a mess, but I promise you, if you were to ask God, even if you got saved when you were 5, God will look at you and be like, "Yeah, that first 5 years was rough, bro." Right?
Well-
like seriously. So people that get saved like that,
Yeah.
or like they didn't have to turn to drugs and alcohol and all of this stuff like what we did.
I mean,
Like,
the fact that people said no to those things, like I'm like super impressed.
yeah, like there's some of them they didn't need. They just needed a little nudge, but it doesn't
Yeah.
take away. Like that's why sometimes people hear our stories and they go like, "Oh, but I don't have a story." It's like, no, listen, you do have a story,
Yeah.
no matter what it is. But God comes to us and appeals to us on the level that we need Him to.
Yeah.
Right? Like I had to hit rock bottom because I was such an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I was so stubborn and selfish. That's what it took for me. But it doesn't take that for everyone. And I hope that like my story and Moses' story and other people's story like this would serve as like a, hey, you don't have to kill the Egyptian to get God's attention.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could take an easier path if you would take wise counsel early on in life. Like there
Yeah.
is an easier path. And so even though I think a lot of people end up with their own burning bush moments, there are some people that their heart is just a little bit more tender out the gate, I think.
Yep.
That they get to take the easy route. And I say easy, no one's life's really easy. But they get to take the path of least resistance, and they're actually the wise ones for it.
Yeah.
We're the stupid ones.
Yep.
They're the lucky ones in the sense that their heart was so tender to God that He didn't have to humiliate them. They chose the humble route up front.
Yeah. It's good. I think that this is like a really good stopping point
yeah.
too, because I think that there's a lot to unpack there. And if you're listening to this, I just want to encourage you. You know, those little nudgings that you feel, God just kind of laying on your heart to maybe go in this direction, or maybe volunteer and serve with this ministry, or maybe to start up something new. I just want to encourage you just to stay faithful and stay the course with those things that God is telling you, because there's blessing that comes in it. And anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a quick question.
What?
Do you have to eat dinner at 4:00 when you wear shoes like that?
Oh gosh. This is the way we kill serious moments.
Yeah, I mean we had to bring. This
Yeah.
is the way that we kill serious moments. Is what you're
Actually-
getting ready to do.
Yeah, no. Actually, you have to eat shredded wheat
You do.
cereal
You do.
and drink a glass of Metamucil whenever you rock these. It comes with a Metamucil
Subscription in the
subscription.
box.
Yeah. All right. Mystery meat time. If
Oh,
you're
here we
just
go.
joining us for this first time, or maybe you just kind of forgot the purpose of the mystery meat, this is just a random question
It
submitted
is to
by
drive me insane.
Drive Scott Insane. It's a random question. We don't know what it is. There's just a whole bunch of questions in there, and it's picked at random. So,
This is definitely yours.
yeah. Oh, hey, this is right up your alley. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? Besides that murdering carrot.
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you would naturally know this, that I don't eat a lot of weird stuff.
I know
so,
this is like piquing
I
my
mean, there's
interest.
probably some people that would find some of the stuff that I eat weird, but I find it normal. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think for a second. Like I think I've said this before. Like I do like mayonnaise on French fries instead of ketchup.
Yeah, that's not that big
People
of a deal.
find that weird though, which I think they're wrong.
No.
But, I'm not very adventurous, so
Yeah.
it's hard for me to say the weirdest. I'll tell you one of the grossest experiences of my life is when I was a teenager. I was at a church event.
Go on.
And they were doing Fear Factor that night, and for some reason, I would not normally like you get like you just you know me. I'm not like, oh, you're doing Fear Factor. Please sign me up. Let's do something weird. Like that's just not me. But that night, there must have been girls there or something that I was trying to impress.
Yeah.
I got into it, and I was actually killing it. So I make it to the final round.
And it's the food round.
Yeah, and they start doing this food stuff, and you had to like drink raw eggs, which didn't bother me at all. I felt like Rocky in that moment.
Yeah.
Like didn't bother me at all.
That makes
But like
sense.
the next thing that they did was like it was if I'm not mistaken, it was like a gigantic matzo ball, like from matzo ball soup, but it was like cold, and I mean it was the most dreadful thing. I lost Fear Factor over it. I couldn't eat it. I almost puked in front of everybody.
That'd have been awesome.
That was one of the weirdest things I've done. Even though I know matzo ball soup's not like a weird thing,
Yeah.
I think they did this like intentionally. Like it was. That's not normally a cold thing, is it?
No, it's a hot soup.
This was like cold and like.
Yeah, no.
Oh, there was just something not right about it, and you have like a belly full of raw eggs, anyways.
Oh.
It was just that was a rough situation. And I do remember I was on a mission trip in the Bahamas whenever I was in high school.
Yeah.
And we went to this little roadside stand. They were selling conch shells.
Yeah.
And you could get a free conch shell if you would slurp the conch pistol out of it. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
There's that little thing. I actually did that because I wanted the conch shell for free,
Yeah.
which that was also disgusting.
Yeah.
But I did it.
I'm a pretty adventurous eater. I would say that, I mean, because I also grew up in like the backwoods of Louisiana. And so my dad would hand us shotguns, and then we would go out there into the woods behind where we lived. And anytime we killed anything, we had to eat what we shot.
Mhm.
And one time, I was young. I think we moved out there whenever I was like out in the country, like whenever I was like 7 or something like that. And so my dad hands me like this shotgun, and he goes, "All right, let's go out there and start shooting." And it's not the weirdest thing that I've ever eaten, but he wanted to teach me like if you shoot something, if you kill something, like you need to be a good steward of like God's creation or whatever,
Yeah.
and you got to eat it. So I shot a cardinal one time. So I've eaten a cardinal, which is highly illegal.
Oh my word.
Like now that I realize
You're
this.
in a state that's our state bird.
Oh,
You just lost all your West Virginia following.
it doesn't matter. I was 7. How are you gonna get mad at a
You shot
7-year-old?
a cardinal when you were 7?
Yeah,
Holy cow.
and I plucked
then
it
you had
and
to
gutted
eat
it, and I built a fire in
Does
the
it
woods.
taste different than other animals?
No,
Or like birds?
Well, it was only like this big, dude. Like it was like the
Oh,
size of a
man.
golf ball, and so I'm sitting there like trying to pick at it, like the little drumstick.
This is
So-
grossing me out so
because it
hardcore.
was like you could have eaten the whole thing
Yeah.
because the bones probably would have just been like crunchy. But I like weird stuff whenever it comes to food.
Will you ever
Like,
go back and watch the old Fear Factor episodes?
yeah, I mean,
Oh man, the stuff that they made them people eat on there,
I mean, it's not my
that
number one
is
choice.
just dreadful.
Yeah, but they make people eat like guts and stuff. Like that's
Oh,
stupid.
well, have you ever seen that? I've never actually watched the show. I only ever watched this segment on YouTube. But I think his name's James Corden. It's Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts. Something
Yeah,
like that.
he's
You either have to tell truth on like a really ridiculous question, or you have to eat something
Yeah.
nasty, like
so
stuff
yeah,
like
he
that.
asked the celebrities like
Yeah.
stuff that people want to know.
Oh yeah. Oh, they'll be like, "Who was the worst actor that you've ever had to work?" Like, and if you won't answer it,
Yeah, you got to
like
eat
you
like
have
fish
to
eyeballs and
eat
stuff.
it, and like the stuff. Like, I don't know how people do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they did it. Like, y'all know I'm a big Survivor fan. They did stuff like that early on in Survivor. They stopped it after probably the first 10, 12 seasons, where you would eat just, I mean, some of the stuff.
yeah,
But then, like, some of the people would do it like it was nothing. Like, they were actually happy to eat it because they were actually getting some nutrition out of it, where they
Yeah,
weren't getting
because
a lot
all they
to
were
eat.
eating were like coconuts.
That's like, as much as I love Survivor, I don't think I could go on it because you have to be able to eat coconuts, fish, and rice. 3 things I will not eat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sleep outside.
Yeah, and sleep outside and work with your hands and play nice with other people. All these things that I'm not a big fan of. So Survivor's probably not. And I would love to do the game Big Brother. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my things. But if you get put on the have-nots and you got to eat that slop, I'd starve.
Yeah,
I would starve.
yeah. You would probably win if there was like an indoor Survivor.
Yeah, if it was like, hey, put me in.
Like the challenges are like watch this Netflix
Yeah,
series.
who could live in New York City the longest with $1 million budget. Like I would beat anybody
You'd just be eating them dollar slices all day long.
all day. I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me something like that, I would win. But yeah, I'd say that those are some of the weirdest things. Would be that conch pistol and
Yeah.
that. I think it was a matzo. I don't know. It was a big, soggy, weird ball of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite thing that's the weirdest thing to eat. And you're already looking at me like I'm like this is gonna be pretty
Yeah.
terrible. So I like adventurous food. I like Vietnamese food a lot. And they have this soup called pho,
Yeah.
and that you can pick all your different types of
Oh,
meat
yeah.
that you want in it. So they've got stuff like beef brisket and sausage and just all different types of cuts of the beef. But then they have one that has like everything from like, so it's got the brisket, it's got the meatballs in it, but then they put like the tendons in there, like for the joints and the knuckles, and they boil it long enough to where it's just like really gelatinous. And it's one of my most favorite things in the whole world to eat.
That's disgusting.
It's not just
Our old
it's,
pastor told us
it's
when
delicious.
he went on a mission trip up to Peru.
Yeah.
Like when you get a high enough up in the mountains of Peru, like there's not anything. So like the place where they were at, they had mutton stew,
Yeah.
and it's the whole mutton
Yeah.
goes in, like eyeballs, everything.
I'm down with that.
and-
I'd eat it.
Yeah,
I'd try
mean,
it.
I would not be down with that at all, and that's all they had to eat the whole time that they were there.
Yeah.
It's like no. I had a buddy that works for a missions organization. He wanted me to go to China with him, and like China has a pretty high honor culture, and really like when you go on mission trips, you should be, cordial to the people that are offering you stuff to eat.
Yeah.
So he was telling me about this, and he was like, "Oh yeah, one time I was there, like they gave, we had snake to eat, and this other time there was like this lazy Susan that just like went around, and there was something different on all of it, and like you never really knew what it was." I was like, "Bro, as much as I love you and I love the Lord, I'd love to go share with people in China. I would be the worst person at doing that because I can't do that." Like
Yeah.
when I went to Ecuador in last January, and one of the days we had to go into this family's home, and this is like, these people are so poor. So what they are offering us to eat is a sacrifice of love.
Oh, yeah. It's like sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
But
a
at
month
the-
worth of their salary.
But no joke, it wasn't going in my mouth, man.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know whether it's more disrespectful because this is what people don't fully know, and maybe they don't want to know. I have a really bad gag reflex. Like that's half the reason why I have issues eating stuff, and I can't just like power through it no matter how many times Megan asks me to. Is like I have the worst gag reflex in the world. If I taste something that is not pleasant, I will puke. Like boom on the spot. So I'm trying to work this out in my head at this lady's dinner table. Like the other
Yeah.
guy with me, he's like a 20-year-old from New Jersey. He's just loving life. He's just just eating everything that they put out on the table. The other guy that's with us is from Ecuador, so he's loving it. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, is it more disrespectful not to eat this or to puke? Like I don't know which one it is. So I was like, I ate what I could, and that's the hardest part for me of doing mission work.
Yeah.
Is the stuff that gets put in front of me because like there was meat, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. And then of course there was rice, and it's just everything. I just can't do it. And I feel bad because I do. I started. This is no. If you don't care about this, tune in next week. But I started drinking those athletic greens.
Yeah.
The AG1s. Well, when you shake it up, it always has a little bit of foam left in it all the time.
Yeah.
When you get that last swig down by that foam, and you're trying to get all of it that you possibly can, you do sometimes get a little bit of the foam, and then sometimes you get a little bit of the powder that wasn't.
Yeah. The grit.
Dude, when that hit my throat the first week, we had issues. Like, it's that sensitive.
I want to see this.
Yeah. Oh, just ask Megan. She gets furious.
I don't.
It's
I
so
want to
bad.
see it though.
It's so bad. Like if I brush my teeth and I like go too far to the middle or whatever, like trying to brush my tongue, like I will literally gag, and Megan will be like, "What are you doing?" Like she'll be losing her mind on me, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm like this. Okay, I didn't make me like this.
Yeah.
I just have a very sensitive like gag reflex to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like
It's
a
good.
lot of things, which is why I can't just be adventurous and like, oh, let's just eat that Brussels sprout. It's like, if you want to see everything I had for the day, sure, let's try this out. But like that's what's going to happen. It's just a thing. So
Yeah, it's still good.
this was probably my favorite
Question?
question so far.
Yeah, because it hasn't been
Yeah.
like terrible.
Yeah, because most of these I hate. So
It's all good. It's all good. Well, thank you so much for listening. Join us. Hey, we're going to continue this conversation on the story of Moses every time that we have Pastor Scott on for the foreseeable future, because we just believe that there's truths in every section of the Bible that we can take from and apply to our lives. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next Friday. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.